Welcome to the Aligned Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Pooja Venkatraman. I'm a double Harvard grad, former BCG consultant, and now an executive coach for high achievers. On this podcast, we are going to tackle the 4 key things that you need to figure out in order to live a life of aligned ambition. Those 4 things are stress, productivity, performance, and purpose. We are going to make sure that you're driving your car in the direction that you actually want to go. That is the purpose part. We're also going to make sure that your progress along the road is consistent and effective. That's the productivity and performance part. And we're going to make sure that the fuel you're pouring into your tank isn't so noxious that it's filling your car with fumes and making the whole ride miserable. That is the stress part. Because if you can tackle those 4 things, stress, productivity, performance, and purpose, you can build the life and the career that you actually want. Not the life you think you're supposed to have, not the life that burns you out or doesn't fit quite right, but the life you actually want. One that fulfills your biggest ambitions and unleashes your fullest potential without sacrificing your sanity, your relationships, your authenticity, or your paycheck. A life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. That's what aligned ambition is all about. Let's get started. Hey guys, I have got a big, scary topic for you today, but I just want to pull the monster out from under the bed and look it right in the eyes and talk about it. Today's topic is, what if it's just not possible to build the career that you actually want to have? So as you know, I do these free career audits with people where we sit down for an hour, we assess your career on the 4 key components of aligned ambition. We look at your stress, your productivity, your performance, and your purpose. And we'll do a diagnosis. We'll pinpoint exactly where things aren't working and why along those 4 components. And then we'll build a game plan and we'll say, okay, this is what it would take. This is what you have to do in terms of skill building and positioning. This is the strategy to build the career that you actually want and improve your career's performance on the stress, productivity, performance, and purpose dimensions, right? So we build that game plan together. This is what it would take to build the career that you actually want. And then I also talk a little bit about, can I help you? Am I the right kind of support? But another support kind of help you, et cetera. So we do these free career audits, right? Where we audit, we assess, we diagnose, and we build the game plan. And then there's this really common fear that comes up for people when they're looking at the game plan, right? So we've done the analysis. We know exactly what's not working in your career and exactly what you need to do to fix it. And then there's this fear that comes up for people, which is, but what if it's just not possible, right? Like I see the game plan, I see everything you're telling me to do, and then I'm just afraid, what if it's not possible for me? What if I can't do the skill building I need to do? What if I can't find the type of career, the type of positioning, the type of role that I'm looking for? What if at the end of the day, I invest in coaching and I put in all of this hard work and I really, really try. And it turns out as we work together and as I try to execute this game plan, it turns out it's just not possible for me. It's a literal impossibility in the world that I can have the exact kind of career that I want, right? So it comes up for people at the end of the career audit, but I'm guessing that this kind of thought might prevent you from even booking the free career audit in the first place, right? Because you're like, I'm really afraid that the career I want isn't possible. And the last thing I want is to spend an hour, do the audit, get the diagnosis and the game plan, and be told, yep, it's not possible for you. You're the one. It's possible for everyone else, but you're the one that's destined to fail, right? So that fear comes up at the end of the audit, but it even prevents people from booking the audit altogether because that fear is lingering in the background. And the last thing you want is for it to be confirmed when you sit down and talk to an expert like me, and you never want you just are so afraid someone like me is going to look you in the eye and say, yeah, your dreams are impossible. Right? So I want to talk about this fear because it lingers in people's minds and it stops them from trying. It stops them from executing the game plan. It stops them from even getting the game plan in the first place and coming to the audit because they're so afraid this fear is going to be confirmed. So the first thing I want to tell you is I get this. I totally get this. I totally empathize with this because I feel this way too. This happens to me every time I invest in coaching, every time I try. Every time I set a goal and say, this is what I want, and then I really go after it, the number one thing that happens before I get started is I'm really, really afraid that it's not possible. The very first time I invested in coaching, it was a small investment. I joined a coaching program. I didn't hire a one-on-one coach. I joined a program and it was $300 to join the program. And then it was like $60 a month after that. Not a huge investment, right? Like I can absolutely make that work. And I was so terrified. I invested $300. And then like for a day or two afterward, I had to physically hold myself back from emailing them and being like, can you please get me a refund? This has been a huge mistake. And the reason that I was so wanted to ask for that refund was because I was so terrified it wasn't going to work for me. It had nothing to do with the coach. It had nothing to do with her process. I'd been following her for a long time. I loved her content. I thought she had a great way of approaching things. I was afraid the problem was me and I was going to screw it up and I was going to be so embarrassed and I was going to be revealed to me, this is impossible for you. You can't get the outcomes that you want. And that fear made me almost ask for a refund. And I'm so glad I didn't, by the way. It's funny, I still work with that coach today in a different program. And I think back to that time and I'm like, my life could have branched on a completely different avenue if I had asked for that refund and never done that very first coaching investment and learned about coaching and then ultimately become a coach and then ultimately keep working with that coach. So who knows where my life would have gone if I had given in to that fear of failure and asked for the refund and not tried at all to like achieve that outcome that I was trying to achieve in that program, that my life might have gone down a totally different path. So I'm so glad I hung on through that day or two of fear. But I tell you all that to say, I get it. I totally, totally get it. When you're looking at your dreams, your hopes, the career that you actually want, when you lay that out on paper and then you lay out the steps that it would take to get there, that's the first thing that's going to come up is that intense fear. What if it's not possible for me? Or it could come up for you, right? What if it's not possible for me? And then that fear, your brain is trying to protect you from that fear and from the horrible feeling it thinks that you would feel if you failed. And so it's like, let's just not even try. So I totally, totally get it. But I'm going to give you 3 reasons today why it is still worth it to try. It is still worth it not to go 50%, not to try a little bit or give it like a little half-assed try. Why it is worth it to go whole hog and try 100% to build the career that you actually want, even if you're afraid that it might not be possible, right? So let me give you those 3 reasons. Reason number 1, I want you to ask yourself, how do you know that the career that you want is not possible for you? Right? That part of your brain that's afraid, that's saying it's not possible. I want you to ask that part of your brain, how do you know? What's the logic? What's the data that you are resting this conclusion on? There's 2 types of reasons, right? 2 types of data that people will have to, rest this conclusion on. One type of data is, I just think it's not possible. It's a theory, right? It's not based on real world data. It's based on your own conjecture. It's just not possible to and have the, do the type of work I want to do and also make the kind of salary I want to make. Or it's just not possible to live in the location I want to live and still have the kinds of career that I want. Whatever it is, it's conjecture, it's theory, it's a hypothesis, right? That's one type of reason why your brain will tell you, this is why I think the career I want is impossible. The other type of reason that your brain will tell you that the career you want isn't possible is based on real world data. And you'll be able to say, no, I looked in the market for these kinds of roles. I tried to build this skill. I tried to make this work. I tried to go through these interviews. I tried to launch this business, whatever it might be, but you will be able to point to real world data and not an N of 1. Okay, or an N of 2, but a significant sample size. Real world data, significant sample size, and then you'll be able to say, here's the reason, given the market structure, given how these types of companies work, given the problem in the market that I'm trying to solve, whatever it might be, you'll be able to give an answer based on a significant data set of real world data for why the career you want is impossible, right? Those are the 2 types of logic that can underlie your brain's fear that it's not possible. And if I had to guess, for 99.99% of you listening to this, the reason your brain is afraid it's not possible is based on conjecture. It's based on a theory. It's based on some thoughts. It's a hypothesis. It is not based on a significant data set of real world data. And this is really, really important to realize because the thing that I always tell people is when you're trying to build the career you actually want, a lot of times people will assume ahead of time an A+ career is not possible. And so they'll say, well, a B+ career is possible or a C+ career is possible, right? These are the trade-offs I know I'm going to have to make. I'm just trying to be realistic, right? I'm just being reasonable. Nothing's perfect. That's the kind of language people will use, right? But what they're really doing is they're saying A+ is not possible. B+ is the best that I can do. And so let me go look for my B+ career, right? And I really recommend people don't do this. What I recommend is articulate what your A+ career would look like, your A+ next job, or the A+ version of you being at this current job. Articulate what the A+ would look like, and then go try to make the A+ happen. Do that first, right? Because if you aim for the B+, if you look for the B+, you will find it, and you will never see the A+. You will never actually, the A+ could be out there. You just wouldn't have engaged in the problem solving to actually uncover it or to create it, right? You'll just find the B+, and then you'll confirm your belief that B+ was the best you could do. Whereas if you get really clear on what your A plus career would look like, and then you go out there and you actually try to make it happen, whether it's finding a new role or making your current role an A plus, this applies both ways. When you actually try to make the A plus happen, you give yourself a shot at actually making the A plus happen, right? You go whole hog, you really, really try, and then one of two things is going to happen. Either you'll discover, oh, through real world data and a significant sample set, the A plus is not possible. But if you find that out, what you're going to find is it's not going to feel personal and it's not going to feel scary. It's going to feel really logical and impersonal. And you're going to be like, oh, okay, this makes sense. This is why it's not possible in this kind of context. Totally fine. Not a big deal, right? And so when you discover that the A plus isn't possible from real world data, your brain thinks it's going to feel really scary and you're going to feel stupid and you're going to feel like you wasted a bunch of time. And why did you try? Why did you put all that effort forward? The reality is when you discover from real world data that your A plus is not possible, it feels really good. It feels clear. It feels clean. It feels like you've learned more about the world. It doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel like you did a bad job. It just feels like, oh, I've learned more about how the market works. What are the different possible careers and roles out there? And now I understand this constraint in the market. Totally makes sense, right? I'll give an example of a time that I discovered this, right? I used to be chief of staff to the head of credit card fraud at Capital One. It was an amazing role. I really, really enjoyed it. But one of the things I discovered is I went into that role because I was like, I really like doing advisory work. I like to be an expert in something. And then I like to use my expertise to help people, which is what I do now as a coach, right? But that was really my angle going into that role is like, I want to be an advisor in the realm of fraud. Right. And so I'm going to get really deep and deeply understand how fraud works, like technically, and I'm going to understand all the latest trends and I'm going to understand how we handle different types of fraud. And then I'm going to use that expertise to advise the business. That was my hypothesis going into it. And then I spent some time in the role. It was still a great role, but I realized, oh, that's not really what this role requires. People are not asking for advisory support on fraud. People are asking for operational support on fraud. That's really what creates value in this role, right? Is we need to make our fraud operations more efficient. We need to make our fraud defenses stronger and smarter and adapting faster. And we have to support, as there's new product launches happening, we have to support the fraud element of that. So I was like, oh, this is largely an operational role, not an advisory role. Right. And so I discovered, hey, the type of advisory career that I'm trying to build, this is really not quite the right place to build it. Not because there's anything wrong with me, not because there's anything wrong with them, but just because the problem that needs to be solved here, it's an operational problem. It's not an advisory problem. Right. That's an example of me trying whole hog to build my A plus career and getting real world data, a significant sample set to realize, oh, it doesn't quite work here. Right. And I didn't feel terrible about myself. And I didn't feel like all my prospects were closed forever and nothing I could it's completely impossible for me to have the career I want. I had just gathered real learnings. And I was like, oh, I understand. I get it. I get why the thing I'm trying to do doesn't quite fit. The puzzle pieces don't quite work when I try to do it over here for this purpose. I understand that now. I get it. And now I actually have more clarity and more understanding about how can I go be the advisor I want to be? How do I have to position myself? Where do I have to play? Because I've really understood why this is not quite the right place to play. Right. And so that's what failure actually feels like, right? When you go for it and you really try to make either your current role or your next role, your A plus role, even if you discover it's not possible, it's not going to feel like the gavel coming down, like a coffin lid closing on you and saying nothing's ever possible for you ever, right? That's what your brain's afraid it's going to feel. That's why it's preventing you from even trying to go for the A plus. But I'm telling you, when you go for the A plus and you try really, really hard, and then you discover it's not possible or it's not possible in this realm, it feels clear and clean and like you gathered a bunch of data. And honestly, you feel energized. You're like, great, I learned a lot more. And now I have even more ideas for how I can make my A plus happen because I just got so much knowledge about what doesn't work. So that's reason number one, why I think it is so worth it to try, even if you're afraid that it's not possible. Because my guess is your fear that it's not possible is based on a theory, not on real world data and a significant sample set. And I'm telling you that if you try 100%, you get out of the world of theory, right? And you articulate your A plus and you really go for it and you gather real world data on what it takes to make it happen, you're either going to succeed, which is going to feel great, or you're going to get amazing learnings. And the learnings are actually going to energize you to get out there and try again. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, why I think it's still worth it to try to build the career you want, even if you're afraid it's not possible, is the limbo is worse. You think that the worst feeling is going to be finding out that it's not possible. But I'm here to tell you, the limbo of not knowing if it's possible or not is actually the most painful place that you can be. Because when you don't know whether the career you want is possible or not, when you're just stuck in the like, maybe it is, and like on a good day, I feel hopeful, but then maybe it's not. And on a bad day, I feel sad and despondent and resigned, right? That limbo is actually the most painful place to be. Because you can't make good decisions. You don't have a strong basis for feeling happy or feeling sad, right? And so you just kind of get whiplashed around by random things that happen and just the mood of the day, right? Your brain is trying to prevent you from feeling pain and is trying to keep you safe. But I want you to show your brain, hey, you think that you're keeping me safe by keeping me in this limbo, but like this limbo is not fun. It's not fun to hang out in uncertainty. It's not fun to have hope one day and then resignation the next day. And it's not fun to not have a clear path forward. Whereas, worst case scenario, let's say we work together, we articulate your A+ career, we really try to make it happen, and then we discover these are the reasons in the market, these are the structural reasons why that A+ career is not possible. It is going to be a relief because you're going to be like, got it, now I know. Now I know the answer. Now I'm out of limbo. And now that I know what the answer is, and I know that my A+ career is not possible either in this area, or maybe it's not possible at all, whatever it might be, now you have the answer and you can problem solve based on that answer. Instead of being like, maybe, I don't know, like, I'm not sure, you can't make any good decisions off of that. Versus when you have it super solid and clear, it's like a solid brick that you've put in the foundation stone, right, of the house that you're building. You're like, got it. That brick is set, it's down, and now I can build on that. So that's reason number 2. The limbo is actually the most painful place to be. And that's where you are right now, right? If you're thinking, I can think of the career I want to build, and part of me is hopeful, but part of me is afraid that's not possible. And so I'm kind of going forward, but then I'm kind of holding myself back. That is the most painful part. And I really want you to explore that idea for yourself. I'm telling you, you don't have to believe me, right? Explore that for yourself. How is the limbo actually painful? How does your brain, well, your brain is telling you this is the safe place to be, and knowing would be more painful. But I want you to explore, how is the limbo actually painful? And how would knowing be less painful? How would knowing be a relief? How would knowing, either way, is it possible or not? Because I tried based on real world data. So now I know. How would knowing either way actually be less painful and give you more momentum, more progress, and more relief than the limbo? I want you to explore that idea. I found that to be very true for me. I think this is true, but I also want you to really think about it for yourself. Think about your experience of being in the limbo and really question this idea that like finding out it's not possible is the most painful thing that can happen. Because I actually think the limbo is the most painful place that you can be. The third reason why I think it's still worth it to try to build your A+ career, try to build the career that you actually want, even if you're afraid that it's not possible, is we need to work on your relationship with failure, right? This was my realization when I almost asked for the refund in my very first coaching investment. And then I ultimately like hung on and like got myself into it and actually did it as I got coaching, right? This was my very first time getting like real coaching. And so as I started to explore, what are my thoughts? What are my feelings? What are the thought patterns that are holding me back? I realized, oh, my fear of failure and my fear of making mistakes and my fear of screwing things up is a huge pattern for me, right? This affects everything I do. At the time, I have a better relationship with failure now, but at the time I was like, oh, I have a terrible relationship with failure. I make it mean bad things about me. It really brings me down. I'm afraid of it ahead of time, all the time. I work really, really hard to try to outrun the possibility of failure, which means I'm often overworking and doing work I don't need to be doing. And I'm just keeping myself at a high level of stress all the time because I'm so afraid of failure, right? And so all that was really happening when I paid my $300, and then for 2 days afterward, all I wanted to do was ask for a refund. What was really happening was that my fear of failure was super, super activated, right? And it turned out my fear of failure was one of the things I really needed to work on in coaching. And it kind of had nothing to do with whether or not I would fail or succeed in that particular coaching container and with the particular outcome I was trying to build. That was almost beside the point. I realized afterward, I was like, oh, this fear of failure, this thought pattern is happening all over my life. right? This was just one instance. Me wanting to ask for the refund and not go into coaching, that was just one instance of how the fear of failure is playing all throughout my life, right? And so I was like, oh, thank God I got myself into the coaching and we could start working on the fear of failure. Because even if I never get the outcome I'm trying to get from coaching, at least I would have spent a bunch of time really looking at this fear that got activated right before I got started and really looking at what's going on in my fear of failure. What am I making it mean if I fail? What's my level of fear around it, my preemptive fear around it, and how is that driving my behavior while I'm working? How is it driving my decision-making around which goals I choose to go after and which ones I won't even look at and I won't even touch because I'm so afraid I might fail that I won't even start, right? Or how is it limiting the dreams that I will construct for myself? Right? Or that I'll allow myself to aim for because it's making those dreams smaller. Because if I make them too big, then my fear of failure gets activated, right? And so that's the third reason why I think it's so worth it to try 100% whole hog to build the career that you actually want, to build your A+ career, even if you're afraid it's not possible. Because chances are, if your fear that it's not possible is so strong that it's blocking you from even booking your free career audit, right? Or it's blocking you at the end of the audit from actually getting started on your game plan and investing in coaching, then it actually has nothing to do with whether or not you can successfully build this career. Because we actually just need to look at your fear of failure, because that thought pattern is happening all over the place. I guarantee it. And if we just work on that, if we just improve your relationship with failure by 5%, or by 10%, right? We don't even have to improve it 100% or 200%. If we just improve what you think failure means about you, how much you think about failure ahead of time, the stress it creates for you, how it drives your decision making, how it drives your problem solving, how it drives your work that you do towards your goals, how it drives your decision making around goal setting. If we just worked on that, that would make your life a lot better, right? And of course, we'll also be working on building your A+ career, gathering the data from the real world, figuring out if it's possible or not, discovering that it is possible. In most of my clients' cases, that's what we find. Oh, it is possible. That's great. Let's go ahead and go transition to that job or make this job the A+, whichever one it might be. Right, we'll always be working on that. And then as we discover the ways in which it's not possible, we'll be using that data to inform the next set of things you try. So we'll be working on all of that, right? Like that will all be moving forward. And even if we didn't do any of that, and we just worked on your relationship with failure, I think that would be a huge value add to you. I think it would change your life, and I think it would make you feel better day to day. I think it would help you make better decisions, and I think it would help you work towards your goals in a way that's both more effective and less stressful. The ultimate win-win that I'm always aiming for: better work and you feel better while you're doing it. So even if we did nothing else, you would improve your relationship with failure. So those are my 3 reasons for you why, even if you're afraid that the career that you actually want, that your A+ career is not possible, this is why I still think it's worth it to go whole hog and try to build it, even if you're afraid it's not possible. And the 2 ways that you can do that, right? One is book your free career audit. This is the first place where I see this fear coming up for people, is they're like, I don't even want to book the audit. I don't even want to see how my career is doing along the dimensions of stress, productivity, performance, and purpose. I don't even want to get the diagnosis. I don't even want to look at the game plan. Right? I don't even want an expert looking at any of this stuff. That's the first place where this fear comes up, is they're like, ooh, because like if you really looked under the hood here, you might tell me that I've really been screwing this up this whole time and like the career I want is not possible. So that's the first place that fear is going to come up for you. And it's normal. It's totally normal. I feel this way all the time too, right? So I completely understand and I empathize and I deeply, deeply get it. And I'm telling you, I don't think that's a strong problem-solving decision, right? I think the reality is if you come in and you get the audit, you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to have a much clearer sense of what's going on, what are the diagnoses, what are the places that aren't working, why aren't they working, and what do you have to do? Here's your game plan to improve your career and make it the A+ career. I promise you, you're not the one special person who are just terminally screwed up and it's not possible for you. I guarantee you it's not a you problem. It's just a process problem. And we're going to find a few simple fixes that are going to make you feel a lot better and get your career going on the track that you want it to go. So that's that first place where the fear comes up. And then the second place that fear comes up is like, once you're looking at the game plan and you're like, oh, it's time to actually make a decision about how do I want to implement this and what kind of support do I want to have as I'm implementing it. And that's the second place where your brain will be like, oh my gosh, what if it's just not possible? What if I spend a bunch of money and I invest a bunch of time and I try really, really, really hard? And then at the end of the day, the answer is, yeah, just wasn't possible for you. You were never going to get there, right? That's the other place where this fear really comes up. And that's what I'm telling you is like, it's still worth it. even though your brain thinks ahead of time that like failure is going to be such a terrible feeling and you're going to feel awful about yourself and awful about your prospects and that your future will be dark and dim forever forward, right? And I would argue you're already living in that reality, right? You're already living in that reality of fear and self-criticism and self-doubt and your future feeling dim and dark, right? You're already there. That's actually what the limbo feels like. Whereas if you actually go whole hog for your A+ career and you really try to make it happen where you are or in the next place that you want to go, what you're actually going to get is real data from the real world that's going to help you understand, oh, this is in the context of the market, in the context of the real world capitalist market that we all live in. This is how it's possible or not possible to create the career that I want. These are the constraints. These are the conditions. I'm learning more about the market. You're going to get out of the limbo and you're going to get to certainty. And trust me, even if the answer is not the answer you want to hear, certainty feels better than limbo, and you're going to improve your relationship with failure. Because if that fear of failure is coming up strong for you, like it does for me, I guarantee you it is bleeding into all kinds of things in your life, right? All kinds of like micro and macro decisions well beyond just your career. And so you're just going to get, by working on it and by going whole hog for your A+ career, even if the career itself is not possible, which I don't think is likely to happen, but even if the career you want is totally impossible in any realm, any dimension, we totally can't make it work, you'll still walk away with a better relationship with failure and a better relationship with yourself. And that alone is worth a lot. So those are the reasons why I think it is still worth it to go whole hog and really try to build the career you want to build, even a little part of you or a big part of you is afraid that's not actually possible. So the next step you need to take is book your free career audit with me. We can go deep into your actual career, assess, are you going in the direction that you actually want to be going, right? That's the purpose part of it. How is it going? How is your performance? How is your productivity? Look at the external markers. Look at how you are set up for success or not set up for success where you are. And look at how is it feeling internally as you're doing all this. What's your level of stress or burnout or meaning or purpose? We'll look at how it's all feeling. So we'll assess the 4 key dimensions of aligned ambition. We'll pinpoint what's not working. I'll tell you why it's not working. I'll give you that diagnosis. We'll build the game plan for what you need to do to actually make this your A+ career and create the life and the career that you actually want. You'll walk away with these incredibly helpful diagnoses and game plans. And if a little fear of failure comes up for you as we're doing all that, just know I got you. I totally understand. I totally get it. Here's why it's still worth it to go after it anyway. And I'll be there. I'll be there to support you. So come talk to me. I'll see you at your free career audit. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Aligned Ambition podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and share this podcast with anyone you know that you think could use it. If you'd like to explore working together in a one-on-one coaching engagement with me, book a free consult call at poojavcoaching.com/contact. You can grab that link in the episode description. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or topics you want me to cover in this podcast, shoot me an email at pooja@poojavcoaching.com. You can grab that in the episode description too. Talk to you soon.